In the final months of World War II, young Japanese pilots climbed into small, fuel-starved planes, knowing they would never come back. Their orders were simple and final: steer the aircraft straight into enemy ships and detonate. These were the kamikaze divine wind turned into a weapon. Why did Japan adopt suicide attacks? And what drove thousands of mostly teenagers to volunteer? This is a calm look at a desperate tactic and the human stories behind it. By 1944, Japan was running out of time and resources. Naval defeats at Midway and Leyte Gulf had shattered much of the fleet. American carriers and amphibious forces were pushing closer to the home islands. Fuel was scarce, aircraft were aging, and experienced pilots were few after years of intense combat. Japanese commanders faced a stark choice: keep fighting with conventional tactics that were increasingly ineffective, or try something radical to inflict heavy damage with limited means. That sense of strategic desperation set the stage for a tactic that emphasized sacrifice over survivability. Kamikaze literally means divine wind. The term reached back to a 13th century typhoon that destroyed Mongol invasion fleets and was seen as a sign Japan was protected by the heavens. In 1944, Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi formalized special attack units. Pilots would deliberately crash explosive-laden planes into Allied ships. The logic was grimly simple. A single plane, properly aimed, could cripple a carrier or sink a destroyer. With few planes and less fuel, the Japanese High Command calculated that sacrificing aircraft and pilots might exact a disproportionate toll on the Allied fleet. Missions were coordinated and often launched in waves. Targets were primarily American carriers and destroyers supporting amphibious operations. Pilots ranged widely in age, many barely out of their teens. Training was often rushed, focusing on the skills needed to get the plane to the ship: navigation, basic flight control, and the final, terrifying approach. Before flights, crews performed farewell rituals, brief ceremonies, final letters, headbands tied tight with phrases invoking honor and duty. The Battle of Okinawa marked the peak of kamikaze activity. Hundreds of aircraft launched in concentrated attacks, sinking or damaging dozens of Allied vessels and killing thousands of sailors. The physical damage was significant, but the attacks didn't halt the American advance. The question of motivation is layered. Japanese wartime culture prized loyalty to the emperor, duty to the nation, and self-sacrifice as noble ideals. Propaganda and official rhetoric painted kamikaze service as the highest form of patriotism. Some young men embraced that message wholeheartedly. Others were swept along by social pressure, refusing to bring shame on one's family, and group dynamics in tight-knit units made dissent difficult. Importantly, historical letters and testimonies reveal complexity. Many pilots wrote fearful, conflicted notes to loved ones. They were not uniform fanatics. They were human beings facing extraordinary circumstances. There are haunting personal details: a scraped signature on a final letter, a photograph tucked into a wallet, a mother folding a son's uniform. These small, concrete things remind us that behind the tactic were individual lives, friends, sons, lovers, aware to varying degrees of what lay ahead. The rituals before flight, the quiet words shared on the tarmac, the last glances at the sky, these moments carry the emotional weight. Understanding this human side doesn't excuse the decision to make suicide a weapon, but it helps explain it. A mixture of ideology, coercion, panic, and genuine belief. Roughly 3,800 kamikaze pilots died in these missions. Allied losses included around 30 ships sunk and many more damaged, with thousands of sailors killed or wounded. Yet strategically the tactic failed to change the war's direction. By August 1945, after atomic bombings and the Soviet declaration of war, Japan surrendered. The kamikaze remain one of the most controversial images of the Pacific War, a symbol of national desperation and the tragic human cost of total war. For many, they raise difficult questions about honor, coercion, and responsibility in wartime decisions. The story of the kamikaze is not a simple tale of fanaticism or heroism. It's a story of a nation cornered, of young lives shaped by ideology and intense pressure, and of the brutal calculations made when survival seems impossible. Remembering these pilots helps us see the final months of World War II more clearly, and reminds us how quickly desperation can reshape strategy and human choices. If there's one takeaway, it's this: history's hardest lessons often come wrapped in personal tragedy, and understanding them matters.